You ever just see like a piece of public art and it just like stops you in your tracks? Like, those pieces that just spark something in you, whether it's like awe or confusion or even a little bit of like outrage. I remember one time I was walking downtown and I saw this giant abstract sculpture.
Was it the shiny red one?
No, this one was like a tangled mess of metal pipes, and people were arguing about it, like what it represented. Some people thought it was about like urban sprawl, and other people thought it looked like a giant hairball.
Ah, the joys of public art, right. It's supposed to get people talking, even
Yeah.
if they disagree. Not everyone has to love it,
hmm
but it should make you think.
Exactly. And that's what makes today's deep dive so interesting. We're going to Romania to Timisoara, where there's this whole collection of modern statues that's dividing the city. It's sparking all these conversations about how a city's history and its artistic vision kind of like come together, you know?
And Timisoara has a really fascinating history. It's gone through so many changes over the centuries. Like it was rebuilt by the Habsburgs after being ruled by the Ottoman Empire. And then it became this really successful industrial and commercial hub.
Wow. So we're talking about a place that's just steeped in history, right? Like layers and layers of stories just etched into the streets. And then in 2015, they decided to revamp the historic city center with a focus on showcasing that past. It seems like that would be a recipe for success, right?
Yeah, you'd think so. But it's where the execution comes in that things get a little more interesting. Because part of this revitalization involved commissioning and putting up these modern abstract sculptures all throughout the city center.
And that is where those strong reactions come into play, huh? Because some people who live there feel like these modern pieces really clash with the historical setting. It's gotten so much attention that a popular website even put the statues on their top unsightly urban statues list, which, ouch, that's gotta sting. Especially if you're a city trying to attract tourists.
Yeah, that's definitely not the goal.
Yeah.
And it just highlights how tricky it can be to create public art, especially in places that are really historically significant. Like,
Right.
how do you honor the past and also embrace the present and the future all at the same time?
It's such a delicate balance, and there's one statue in particular that seems to be at the center of this whole debate in Timisoara Superman. It got the not-so-coveted 21st spot on that list of 95 unsightly statues. Now listen, we're all for artistic expression, but it seems like there might be a disconnect between what the artist was going for and how people are actually experiencing the piece.
And that's what's so cool about the stuff we get to see for this deep dive. We have access to interviews with actual residents of Timisoara, so we get to hear directly from them what they think.
Let's hear it. What are the people of Timisoara saying? Let's start with this Superman sculpture that's causing all the commotion. One resident told reporters that they were completely baffled by it. They even wondered if it was supposed to be an alien abduction. And then another one said they thought it looked like a soldier.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how subjective art can be, right? What one person sees and is totally confused by someone else might connect with on a deeper level. And when you put art out in public like that, it's like you're just asking for all sorts of different interpretations.
Oh, totally. And some of those interpretations can get pretty heated. But it wasn't all negative reactions to Superman. We actually heard from some residents who were kind of charmed by it. One person even said they liked how it challenged the traditional idea of like what a superhero could be.
That's so important to remember about public art. It's meant to start conversations, even if people disagree. It's not about making something that everyone loves, but about sparking those conversations and maybe even a little debate. I mean, it could be a really powerful way to challenge people's perspectives.
For sure. So while we're hearing from the people of Timisoara, I can't help but wonder what the artist behind all this is thinking about these reactions.
Well, the artist who created Superman, his name is Virgil Scripcuriou, and he's actually talked about the piece. And his explanation is pretty interesting. He said he was trying to sort of flip the Superman story that we all know. Instead of having a male superhero, he wanted to make the mother the powerful figure, the one being cared for by her child.
Wow, that is such a cool and unique take. But I can definitely see how the original idea could get lost when people see the sculpture without knowing anything about it. It reminds me of other famous artwork that people were confused by or even outraged by when they first saw it.
Oh, absolutely. Think about Duchamp's fountain. I mean, it was literally just a urinal,
Yeah.
but it turned the art world on its head back in 1917. Or what about Picasso's Guernica? It's considered a masterpiece now, but people were really resistant to it at first just because it was so different and abstract.
Yeah. It makes you wonder what people will say about Superman in 100 years, right? Will it be like a beloved landmark or will it still be confusing people? Speaking of different perspectives, we can't forget about the mayor of Timisoara, Nicolae Robu. He has some pretty strong opinions about the people criticizing the statues.
Yeah, he did not hold back at all. He actually called the critics idiots and said they didn't understand art.
I can't even imagine how frustrating that must be from his point of view. The city invests all this money in these art pieces to make the city more beautiful, and then people just bash them. And it's not like these things were cheap either. I mean, the city reportedly spent around 150,000 leathers on the statues.
And that adds a whole other layer to the situation, doesn't it? Because with public art, especially when it's funded by taxpayers, there's this tension between giving artists freedom and being accountable to the public.
Right, because it's not just about the art itself, it's about how public money is being spent. Do the statues reflect the community's values? Are they worth the cost? There's no easy answers.
Definitely not. And get this, despite all this controversy, the mayor is not backing down. In fact, he wants to install even more statues.
Really? He's doubling down.
He's going for it. And just wait until you hear this. One of them is supposed to be Tarzan.
Wait, Tarzan? Why Tarzan?
Well, it turns out the actor who played Tarzan in those old movies, Johnny Weissmuller, he was actually born in Timisoara.
No way. You can't make this stuff up. It's almost like he's leaning into the controversy. Like he wants Timisoara to be known as this edgy city that embraces the unexpected. I gotta say, I'm kind of into it.
It's a bold move for sure. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But not all of the new statues in Timisoara have been quite so controversial. There are two in particular that are getting a lot of attention, but maybe not for the reasons you'd think.
You're talking about the Great Pyramid and the human shell, right? The ones by the artist, Mircea Roman.
Yep, those are the ones that are already really striking and modern looking. But what's really caught people's eye is how similar they look to something you might find at that food restaurant. And I'm not talking about the artwork.
Okay, now I'm really curious. You're gonna have to explain this one.
Let's just say there's been some comparisons to a certain Golden Arched establishment's trash receptacle.
Wait, you mean?
Yeah, a McDonald's trash can.
You're kidding, right. People are comparing these like high art sculptures to a trash can.
It's true. And you know what? It's actually kind of brilliant. Whether the artist meant to do it or not, it sparked all these jokes and even some like social commentary around the city, which is a pretty interesting reaction to art that leaves you scratching your head, right?
Yeah, totally. It's like if I don't get it, I might as well just laugh about it. But it does make you think about the role of humor in these kinds of situations.
Oh, absolutely. Humor can be so powerful, especially when it comes to talking about society and culture. It lets people engage with these really complex ideas in a way that just makes sense. And it sticks with you, even when you're talking about abstract art and city planning.
It's like finding that perfect balance between being critical and just finding the funny side of things.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into these controversial statues in Timisoara. We've gone from ancient history to modern art. We've heard from the people who live there, and we've even talked about the cultural impact of a fast food trash can. I never thought I'd say.
It's been a wild ride, right? But like a lot of really fascinating deep dives, I think we're ending up with more questions than answers. Like, how much should public opinion influence decisions about public art? Is it about finding a middle ground? Or should artists be able to push the boundaries, even if it makes some people uncomfortable?
And what about Timisoara's strategy? It seems like they really want to stand out, but is it worth the cost? These are things for all of you listening to think about.
We really encourage you to check out Timisoara for yourself. See these statues with your own eyes and form your own opinions, because sometimes the most interesting journeys are the ones that leave you wondering.